Assalamu alaikum and welcome all in Dialogue with the Youth so on Gunjur Online TV. Once again, we are back on Wednesday to discuss current affairs in our country. And today, the date is on the 6th of October 2021. The time is 8 o'clock UK. It should be about 7 o'clock in the Gambia. Once again, we are back and greetings to you all over the world, our viewers, our followers. Today also we have a very important topic to digest about the current issues that are happening in the Gambia, our country. And today we have a guest who has just been from the Gambia, one of the intellectuals of our country and the pride of our country, somebody who is academically and intellectually aware, especially on mental health and other issues. But in fact, he is a multitask somebody. And once again, welcome to Dialogue with the Youth so on Gunjur Online TV. Salifu Manneh, once again. Welcome, Sal.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Thank you very much, listeners, and thank you very much for those of you who are watching the program from every corner of the globe. I feel very humbled when I come to platforms like this because not only does it give me, the opportunity to access faces I have not seen for a long, long time, but also to share with other people my experiences and their experiences and engage in a kind of amicable and friendly way. The ultimate aim being to understand each other, for us to be on the same page when it comes to, subjects that affect the way we live our lives in our communities. So thank you very much for inviting me over. And thank you very much for all those technicians behind this program who are making this program live and fruitful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sal. Thank you very much. We are always humbled to have you and to share your experiences with us. From all areas in academics, in your life journey, and a role model to many of us. Really, we appreciate all the time to see you here, and especially our cousins, Sukutarians. Anyway, so to see you here, representing. I had Balin Cham last Friday. It was fantastic. Good job, good work that she is doing, and on behalf of Sukuta. So you people are making the Sukutarians very, very proud, and they should be proud of you. This is not flattering, but that's the fact. Sally, you just coming from the Gambia, a few weeks ago, and you went there, and not only to go there for holiday. Most of the time, you get engaged in issues, engaging people, visiting institutions, assessing the environment. Knowing your background, you've traveled all over the world. Most of the time, you will go and compare and contrast and see what are the loopholes there here. And please welcome and share your experience with us. Because we have institutional problems in the Gambia, from leaderships, from the executive, from the health, from mental health, from the young people loitering, doing nothing. There's no plan, no job for them. The unemployment rate is skyrocketing in that country. The infrastructure is down. In essence, every aspect that we can measure development in the Gambia is lacking. So please share your experience from one institution to the other, and we will take it from there. But before we go, we have my own brother, the intellectual Nuha Sise. Say good evening, gentlemen, and welcome back, brother Sal. Sal, go ahead and tell us what you experienced. What shocked you in that country, because you went there during the raining season. Somebody want to tile the whole of Suguta for you. That will be we are a little bit jealous, Gunjurians. But go ahead,
Go ahead. I'm going to say, if there is any leftovers, they can pass them on to Gunjur. Now then, do we want to continue in English, or can we use Mandinka? I'm not sure.
Yes, I think we can box all of them, because I want everybody to yes, but we can start with Mandinka and English, both of them, and Wolof if you want, and Jola if definitely.
No, let's limit it to English and Mandinka.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, Ibrahim. Well, thank you very much for introducing the kind of discussions we are going to be involved in this evening. I mean, there are so many. We cannot obviously explore all of them. However, we'll touch and go on some of the subjects you've mentioned, because when you look at current affairs, what affairs are you looking at? You are looking at welfare, you are looking at the fishing industry, you are looking at food security, you are looking at education, health, poor wages, poor employment rates, etc., etc. You are also looking at meat, fish, rice. These things are not necessarily accessible to everyone nowadays. So when, for example, when I go to the Gambia, I don't see it as a holiday actually, because I end up getting involved in a wide range of activities. So in terms of education, I would offer my time to bring young people together to share with them my experiences in education, my experiences in looking for a skill, and my experiences in terms of looking for a way to develop one's life and to live a meaningful life. Living a life is one thing, but to live a meaningful life is a different thing. So it is important always when we come from abroad, mingle with our people, that we share with them our experiences, our knowledge, and the kind of information we have in our heads, so that it doesn't go once we are not there. But I must first of all confine the discussion to one area, which is poverty. I've been very alarmed this time that, without looking at any statistics, you can see that poverty levels in the Gambia are getting worse and worse and worse. As you said in the beginning of this program, many issues that need addressing. And some of the issues, because they have failed abysmally, they demonstrate very clearly how a failed state looks like. Our state has failed. It has failed in economics, it has failed in management, it has failed in leadership, it has failed in development, it has failed in health, education, name it. There are so many failures. Some of them are, I would term them as decay and chronic failures, because we haven't learned from them. We have put nothing in place to kind of get away from them, and we have put nothing in place to be able to move on from where we were before the failures came and when the failures came. So we are not learning anything about these failures, and I think it is extremely important that we look at them, we do some reflection, and we put together some action and planning. In the Gambia generally and individually, Gambians are very laid back when it comes to planning. And if you don't have a plan, you don't have anything to work with. So you just go, in a kind of tunnel vision. A tunnel vision meaning you are only seeing what you are seeing. Anything outside the tunnel is not within your sight. And maybe you are losing out if anything that is outside the tunnel is not being seen. So the failures are chronic. They are chronic, and we must put in place some very radical changes to move them away from a chronic state to a more promising state. Because at the moment, the failures are so chronic that people have lost hope in the people who are leading the country. For example, you go to the market and you want to cook. If you are in Sukuta, for example, you want to cook the kind of meal that attracts Gunjurians from moving from Gunjur to come to Sukuta. Super Kanja, for example. Gunjurians cannot cook Super Kanja. So the best place they learn how to cook Super Kanja is to come to Sukuta. So if you went to Sukuta market to shop for ingredients to be able to cook Super Kanja, no matter the size of your family, you are looking at spending at least over $800 to $1,000. And what are people's earning capacity, earning powers? They are very low. People in the Gambia are earning very mediocre kind of wages and salaries. So all these foods that are beneficial to your physiology are not affordable. So you can see how eating good food is linked with living a very healthy life. People's lives are deteriorating. Things like diabetes are very common. High blood pressure, if you cough, then anybody around you goes with the cough, and it gets translated into a major illness, etc., etc. So in the Gambia situation, you can see why there are so many new illnesses and diseases that were not there, let's say, 50 years ago. 50 years ago, we had Saro. Saro was supplying a lot of good vegetable oil coming from the groundnuts that we produce. And you can see why people in those days were living a better life than us. People had farms to go to. Nowadays, farmlands are all being sold to, foreign investors. So, the problems are so many. They are chronic. There are failures that are in front of your eyes. If you come from here, you see the failures. I mean, a cup of palm oil at Sukuta market is like $35, 35. So how many cups of palm oil do you need for an average family of 10, 15? It's basically not affordable. And the kind of situation in the Gambia where people are becoming hungry and hungrier, and you can see hunger in people's eyes. When people are unwell, you visit them, you can see hunger in their eyes. You say to yourself, look, if I can create or cook a very nice pepper soup, meat pepper soup for this person with plenty of onions, no oil at all, if they were to have this food, they would get up and stand on their feet and say they feel a bit better. So there is hunger in people's eyes. You see it everywhere. Rice is not affordable. I remember during Jawara's days, Jawara had a vision. He said one day, one of the visions he had was the Gambia would become a Singapore of not only West Africa, but of Africa. He meant what he said. God bless him. He meant what he said. The only problem with Jawara had was the people around him who were given the task and the responsibilities to carry the Gambia forward failed him abysmally. They failed the country abysmally. And instead of looking after the country, they looked after their own welfare, their family's welfare, and their personal aims and objectives. Then came Yaya Jammeh's government. I was reading the Janneh Commission. Yaya alone looted our country over $1 billion. The kind of money he looted our country can generate change in every health center in the country. Every health center, major health center, can have a scanning machine so that people don't need to go to Serakunda when they are in problems in terms of diagnostic tools. So I'm just trying to give people some understanding in terms of how year on year there's a big disconnection between the people who lead our country and the needs of our people. Is becoming so polarized that the level of communication between the people who lead our country and its people is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we need to sit down and ask ourselves, why is the Gambia continually stuck in the past? Why? What are we doing wrong? What are we not doing right? And the questions need to come from politicians, from intellectuals, from civil servants, from young people, from everybody really. We need to engage in dialogue like we are engaging in dialogue this evening. That kind of opportunity needs to be created. And Gambians need to be able to sit together, come from different parts, and meet in the middle and engage in dialogue. That means give and take until a solution is found. Otherwise, the way our country is going on, it's like a loose cannon. Nobody knows where it is going to end. Can I stop here for now, Ibrahima?
Yes, Sal, that's a fantastic analysis of the quagmire that the country is at the moment, and where the poverty level. Because all what we are doing is to create a platform or a space where we can tamper poverty, we can reduce poverty. Because when we reduce it, people will become healthier, people will eat, people will be able to send their kids to school for education and all those things. But if poverty is increasing and the country is going down, even the progress that we made is now decaying, it's all going back. And that's something that's concerning. And so it's important to emphasize this. The price of basic commodities, the hospitals, no medication there, the food, the hungry, and all those. This affect everybody across board.
Yes.
This is despite the party color, despite where you come from, it doesn't matter at all. What is happening in that country, less than 1% of the population are enjoying. That's why probably some of them are just attaching themselves to leadership so that they can give them handouts. But at the end of the day, no matter how we meander this, is the failure of leadership.
Yeah.
Our leaders don't have priority. Even in the midst of all these health catastrophes, they are talking about ambulances, they are talking about other things that we don't know. They're dishing out cars to individuals. So it's important to have this civic education, dialogue, assess our people, to assess issues and educate our people that we are going nowhere with how we are going. These leaderships need to be accountable. It doesn't necessarily mean we don't love them, we don't like them. Far from it. What we want to have a decent basic things in that country, like how you said Jawara, how he did. No matter how you disagree with him, at some point the Senegalese were coming to Gambia for everything.
Exactly.
Now that's the opposite side of it. That tells a lot. So I'll talk about the failure of leadership. Before we come to your dialogue with the youths when you went there. What how they respond to some of the questions you posed to them and how their lives are. But leadership here, and you mentioned the failure of leadership. Tell us how this leadership failure affect the institution, the poverty level, the health all over the country.
Yeah, thank you, Ibrahim. When we talk about leadership, we are not talking about the person. We are talking about the qualities, the foresight, the planning, the strategies that a good leader puts in place so that whatever is his vision is achieved. Leaders come and go, but civil servants, for example, those who are at the top level of introducing policies, strategies, and directives, they can be there for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So when we talk about leadership, we are talking in this context, we are talking about leaders who can lead the country out of this quagmire, because it's a quagmire that needs immediate assessment. It's a quagmire that needs immediate treatment. Otherwise, as I said, it's a loose cannon. Nobody knows where it's going to land. For example, many years ago, we're talking about maybe 1943, there was this philosopher called Maslow. Maslow, in his thinking, identified 5 levels of needs. And it doesn't matter whether you live in Timbuktu, whether you live in the Gambia, whether you live in Leeds or London or New York. People generally have some commonality when it comes to needs. A basic need is a basic need. A basic need for healthcare when your health is in trouble, it's a need. It's a global need. So no matter where you are. So Maslow said, physiological need is paramount. Without a physiological need, if that's not met, you are not going to be able to survive. And you can see why. As I said earlier on, if you don't eat nutritious food, your body is going to lack the nutrients it needs for you to be up and running and be going everywhere. Then Maslow went on to say safety. And again, you can see why. Safety is important. And in this case, food security is important. People have to be secured food wise. People have to feel secured security wise, that they're not going to be attacked in the streets. They're not going to be mugged, And this is common things now in the Gambia. People are not safe. People live in fear. It's a very, very unfortunate situation. No matter where you are, if you come from abroad, my first advice to you is when you go to the Gambia, try and keep safe and not to walk about in the darkness and not to travel long distances in the darkness. Wherever darkness finds you, try and touch base there and wait until the following day. Our country is no longer safe. Like 25 years ago, 30 years ago, we as young kids used to go out and play and come back, and your parents would not be worried about you. But nowadays, that security is not there. And you can see why Maslow is making a connection between feeling saved and living a very fulfilling and meaningful life. They are linked. These characteristics are linked. Now, from safety, he goes on to mention love and belonging. We Gambians are very loving, but when it comes to having a sense of belongingness, meaning we belong to the Gambia, we are very proud of the Gambia, but the kind of leaderships we have been having in our country is working every day against those qualities. They don't care about passion. They don't care about compassion. If we had a leader in the Gambia who is passionate about his people's care, we would be talking about health in a different way now. For example, a population of 2 million people, the Gambia, I always mention this. How can you be seeking health reassurances from a population of 14.5 million in Senegal? It doesn't make sense. We are 2 million. You can create opportunity for that 2 million to have access to, let's say you can even create opportunity for 100 people to have access to a doctor anytime they need to see a doctor. But that's not the case at all. If you are a Gambian and you have a health problem, you are worried about where the money is going to come from so that you can look after your health. If you are a Gambian and you have a health problem, you don't know where to go to, whether it's pharmacy, hospital, health center. And even if you go to all these places one after another, you end up not having a diagnosis. You end up not having a treatment plan. And if you don't have money to go through all those journeys, you will die in bed, dehydrated. Even your own people will come and find you in bed and say, well, how are you? Are you feeling better? They would not even offer you a glass of water to say, look, can you sit up and have a glass of water? So this sense of love and sense of belongingness, again, you can see why a philosopher like Maslow has put it into life, because these are parameters of life which have to be present in life for us to enjoy love and the sense of belongingness that Maslow is talking about. So we have to show compassion, we have to show passion, but our own people, Gambians, are becoming very neglectful of each other. It's come up to a point where the dynamics of our culture, the understanding of each other, the non-dialogical politics, the non-dialogical social connections have created a massive vacuum, meaning people don't understand each other. And when they come together, they cannot listen to each other, because this dialogue is about Ibrahima brings something to the table, Pate brings something to the table, Abubakar brings something to the table, I bring something to the table. We look at what is in it for each and every one of us. We pull that together and go home happy and not feeling I am the winner, Ibrahima is the loser. This is what dialogue is all about, and that's lacking. But for dialogue to happen, for creative dialogue to happen, for a resulting dialogue to happen, we have to have that respect, love, and belongingness. These are important, and they are lacking in every sector of our economy. If you look at education, teachers have become so paralyzed that they are not compassionate and passionate about their profession. If you look at health, nurses and doctors are so paralyzed, they are dealing with basic problems every day that they forget about what compassion and passion is all about. Then you move on to self-esteem. Maslow said having esteem is extremely important. And what that means is, I, for example, if I am in a position of power, if I am in a position of bringing about
Yeah, once again, and we are back in our program on Wednesdays, dialogue with the youth. So, and today we have a very important individual who is giving us a lot of postmortem and from an authoritarian position, with authority, to explain so that we can reflect as a people, because these are so important. That's why I want you to share this program so that it can reach to many people all over the world, especially Gambians. And greetings to my one wife, our Ture Kinte, and Bakari Conte, and all those who are listening from YouTube, from Facebook and Twitter. Greetings to you all. You can share your experience, you can ask questions if you want to, so that Sal can dilate on some of the questions that we have. Sal, this is crazy, but it's so important. You are on self-esteem. I don't want to break you. Yes, go ahead.
That's right. Now, Maslow also mentioned that every human being has the capacity, has the intellectual ability, has the physiological ability to be able to attain these characteristics in their own environment. The top one is self-actualization, which means I have achieved my goals, I am comfortable now, I am in my comfort zone, I don't care, I don't want to look out for anybody else. So when self-actualization is achieved, it has to be shared with other people who have not reached self-actualization yet. So he goes from physiological, safety, love and belongingness, esteem, and self-actualization. That's what the in Mandinka it means yewasa, to be content, to get to a point where you look around, you think, yes, if the ladder is 100, I am on the 100th step of the ladder. So I need to look at the ones at the bottom of the ladder. How can I make them reach me? But guess what Gambians do, average Gambians, and the people we have as leaders? When they reach the top, when they are self-actualized, they don't care about other people's self-actualization, because as far as they are concerned, they have achieved everything. This is why you can find, someone working in a very sort of directorate post in the Gambia, for example, and shares, well, next door to where they live, there's a family that have not got any food at all for the next day, and yet they have the audacity to drive a 4 million car and don't feel guilty at all. So when people are self-actualized, if they are selfish and they don't have any passion and compassion, they don't care what happens. And this is where corruption creeps in. You see, our society has become so corrupt. People's thinking, people's mentality has become so derailed that they don't see the benefits of not being corrupt. Because at the end of the day, you gain more not being corrupt than when you are corrupt. But people don't see the bigger picture. And I think this is why it is important that our teachers, our educators, our religion leaders, our politicians, our community leaders, we need to have dialogue all the time. How many people in our families would have a dialogue with their own children after school? Not many people. So we need to educate family members. We need to educate our elders that life has changed. We don't live in dark ages anymore. This is the 24th century. So when your school going girl or boy comes back home, find out from them how their day was. What did they do? What did the teacher tell them? What are their plans? Are they worried about anything? Now then, without conducting any survey, in an average Gambian classroom, you can have maybe 2 to 3 groups. One group, very, very influential family. I mean, they had breakfast before coming to school, and they will be picked up from school after school. They have no worries about breakfast. They have no worries about how to get back to school, home, and they have no worries about having lunch. And there'll be this other extreme group. Out of 100, you can find maybe 30% are the lucky ones, but the 70%, they'll be thinking about after today, after this class, if the class finishes at 5, what time am I going to get home? I'm going to be asking for a lift to take me home. And now getting a lift is not straightforward. It's not even safe to ask your children to ask for a lift after school back home, because they can be taken away. They can be robbed. They can do all sorts. They can be abused. So again, you come back to safety. We are not a safe society anymore. And our leadership, you see, when there is a chronic failure and a decaying failure, you have to come back to leadership. What is wrong with this leadership? Is this leadership not aware? Is this leadership not seeing what majority of the people are saying? And coming back to the classroom scenario, who do you expect to perform better in exams? The person who comes from home not feeling hungry, and it's not thinking about what to have during lunchtime, and it's not thinking about a live back home, or the person who comes to the class hungry. They never had time to have any breakfast at home. Your mother and dad never gave you any breakfast. In my time, my mom would give us porridge before we went to school. We never
Yeah,
go to school
yeah.
hungry. But now the cost of corn is so expensive. People can't afford. And all the farmlands where we used to have corn and maize have been sold to other people, not necessarily citizens, even foreigners. So you can see, if our leaders were smart, they would sit down and do a very, very good post-mortem, asking themselves, why are we still stuck in dark ages? The Gambia is still, after independence, we are still stuck. We have not moved forward at all. And the
No.
more critical questions you ask, the more you see why we are stuck. And the Gambia is not ready for development sometimes, you keep saying, because people are not listening to each other. People are on a different mission. Some people are on a mission to defraud the state day after day, to defraud the state extensively at the expense of the poor. Some people don't care. They don't care whether this young girl in the classroom today, how she's going to get back home. Is there food for them even when they go home? Some kids go from school thinking that there will be food at home, but the mother and father have tried. They could not find anything, so they'll find no food at home. They'll have to go next door, and next door would say, "Well, come here. I know maybe you don't have any food. I'll give you some food." So poverty levels are in the Gambia. And whether you like it or not, people are poorer now than we were 50 years ago. And yet, between 50 years and now, how much money has been injected into the Gambia? One of my colleagues on one of the forums was reminding me the other day that the Gambia is in debt for $80 billion. $80 billion. So it means in the next 20, 30 years, we're going to be servicing those debts. So what kind of future are we creating for future generations? And it all boils down, the bug remains with the leadership. If you don't have a transparent leadership, if you don't have a forward-thinking leader, if you don't have a leadership that has vision, that has passion, that has compassion, that puts all these things I've mentioned earlier on, as a priority, you're going to fail. A leader that leads in darkness, a leader that emerges from the dark, leads in darkness, and expects the whole country to fall apart.
Thank you, Mr. Manneh. The buck have to stop with the leadership. Before coming into the analysis, we have a Bakari Conte says, "Greeting Usman Toure, interesting program." And Sidu Jane says, "The leaders of our country are far from the fruit. They lead themselves, not their people, and their people are oppressed. They have nothing but empty dreams that are far from reality. We thank you for this valuable program." Thank you so much, Sidu, and all those listening, and please share the program so that it can reach, because we have a very, very intellectually and balanced analysis there that we are assessing here. We're not against anybody, and we call in the leadership because the leadership collect our taxes. The leadership collect everything that belongs to all of us. We all have to divorce with some part of our well-being, our power, and give it to that leadership so that the leadership can manage it properly for the benefit of everybody in that country. We are not calling that everybody should be leveled, but what we want is for people to go to bed not hungry, for people at least to have to go to hospital when they try everything, but the health at some point will fail you, so that you can have the safety net, so that your kids can go to school. It's a big investment for our country. For our kids to go to school, we don't discriminate them. Like, you cannot afford the school fee, you have to drop out, and you be anything, you don't have any skill. That's not a good investment for our country. So this is so important, Sal. But I think these philosophers, we need to listen to the Maslow, the hierarchy of need, the love and belonging one, the empathy one. This is our wealth. This is our pride in that we had before. When your father died, the whole community come and take care of you and make sure you don't go hungry. When you are out of the moral compass of any society. Anybody who is your brother or your mother or your father can just put you straight and tell you. So everybody, a community is responsible for everything. We cry together, we celebrate together. But for some reason now, Sal, we are just like a jungle where, if we are big, if we are hungry, you can jump on the small animals and eat them. And if the leadership is there, they don't care about anything. People are going dead. Maternity, mortality is increasing. There's no blood. There's nothing in everywhere. The rice, the feeding, the fish stock now is not there. People are dying. People are malnourished. And you see people who said there's nothing. You're the best. You are these things and all those. But the hypocrisy here, Sal, is any of these people are trying to get their kids and their family out of the Gambia to other people's countries that works, because the systems are in place. Their governments are not corrupt. Their institutions are not corrupt. Their institutions, however, poverty is, but they create safety nets for ordinary people who are poor. At least when you are sick, you have no money, you can still be taken care of the hospital because, and they will invest on your education. Now you are excoriating all your families from the Gambia, and sending them to European countries by all means necessary. And still, you just stand in front of people and say, this place is a heaven, everything is going on. That's just pure hypocrisy. And the safety level you said, because it's so convenient for us to sit here and say, I am fine, my family is here and all those things. But when you go to Gambia for your holiday, and most of them, that's where we are. Akaito is our country. You are not safe. Imagine you cannot even go out at night because of the safety. So if anybody who has any brain at all or any thinking capacity, Maslow's hierarchy of need, if you analyze it and get it right, then the country will be right. But before coming back to you, Sal, because once again, I have to emphasize also, Salif is the CEO, the owner of the mental health institution called MOBE. This is a mental health institution that is providing free service for young people. But not only that, he is going around to educate people. We will come to mental health because the cascading of drugs into our country, those have implications. Nobody is talking about it. That's your area, and you have an institution, a charity that is doing fantastic work. And we're not even talking about mental health, Sal. These are something which are so crazy. But before coming to you, I have my own brother and my role model, Sadio Payan, says good delivery there, Salif. Frank and factual talk. Thank you. Thanks to you. And to my own self, Ibrahim, greetings to you, my brother, and to the family. So, Sal, whatever we do, we have to come back to leadership. People say, why not the oppositions and all those things? Other places, the oppositions are not managing my tax.
No,
they are not responsible for our institution, and the government is not sponsoring them. In the UK, the opposition, the shadow government is being paid by public money, but in there, until we are going to their governments in waiting. I know they need to prepare and all those things, but because we are focusing on the government, that doesn't mean we are biased. But government is the people who have been paid. They have priority because of our taxes, because of our hard-earned money. But Sal, Gambia is a failed country. If our loan, the loan that we owe to people is more than our income, then we have failed, So actually, we're just walking on one leg, Go ahead, Sal.
And this is, as of 2021 July, the Gambia owed 80 billion. So 80 billion, you can see what kind of impact that's going to have on our economy for the next 20, 30 years. And, in this context, let's talk about, for example, about 118,000 Gambians who live abroad between, I've forgotten the years, but contribute about 20% of our GDP. So people abroad, like yourself and myself, our brothers and sisters in everywhere that is in the diaspora, the kind of money we send to the Gambia, because when we send money to the Gambia, for example, if you send money to your family, you know for a fact it's going to your family directly. They'll buy fish, they'll buy bread, they'll buy butter. So the family consumes your money. But when money is sent from institutions and organizations to the Gambia and it gets channeled to the kind of leadership we have, that money, you and I and our families have a right to that money, but it does not necessarily cascade to all the families, does it? It doesn't. So you can see where corruption is creating such a big link in terms of money injected into the economy and where that money finds itself. Before, for example, a development agency abroad sends money, people in the Gambia would send the project proposal, they would send the costings and everything. For example, if they said they're going to dig 10 wells in Sukuta and the cost is $50, they will send the $50, but the $50 will end up only digging one well. They will say the money is finished. That's what they say, these contractors and subcontractors. So you can see why us in the diaspora, we are a big headache to every leadership that comes to the country, because we cannot be cheated, we cannot be misled, we cannot be directed to places we don't want to go to. We know what is happening. So this is why leadership upon leadership that comes to the country, for example, Yaya Jammeh and now Barrow, they don't like people in the diaspora, because we look at the country in a critical way, and we are able to inform our families about what their rights are and about how these governments are misinforming them. There's a lot of misinformation going on. For example, in between 2014 and 2018, according to the IOM, which is the International Office for Migration, it's a UN body. Between 2014 and 2018, 35,000 Gambians left the Gambia through, the back way and all sorts of means to try and settle in Europe. So this is what we know about those who tried to settle in Europe. What about those who were not successful? What happened to them? And when they go back to the Gambia, how do they interact with their trauma? People who are deported from different parts of the country come back home full of anger, full of bitterness, full of a wide range of physical health problems, mental health problems. Whose responsibility is it to look after them? It's the government, but the government is not looking after them. So you find when people come back with such trauma, they indulge into drug use to try and reduce, the overwhelming feeling of being back to this country where you thought you'd never see for about 5-10 years, and where you thought, well, when you come back, you'll have your own car, you'll have built your own house, you'll have moved on. Young people are stuck in the Gambia because the government is not making any attempt or any effort at all to create some opportunities for them. And the government is in the best place to kind of map out what young people need, and to kind of map out throughout the whole country what are young people's problems, how can we meet their problems, how can we reduce urban migration, for example. Why are we not building technical schools, skill schools up country, so that young people there, why are we not building housing estates in areas where young people going to university or going to a technical school is linked with being housed in a 2-bedroom house flat, so that they can stay in our country, be educated in our country, get married in our country, and benefit from the opportunities that the country has created for them, and for them to create opportunities for future generations as well. Why are we not doing that? Why are our leaders, leader upon leader, are so short-sighted that they cannot see problems coming up in 10 years' time? These problems that we are experiencing today in the Gambia have been coming on and on and on. Look at Gunjur, for example. A place like Gunjur, in my days, you can go to Gunjur and come back with a bucket full of fish. And now that fish is all in foreign hands. And the owners of the town and the owners of the fishing industry have all been driven away and taken over by these multi firms who are gaining millions and millions and millions on our doorsteps, but are not pumping anything back. People are poorer now because a family who was selling fish, for example, in Tangier, and because of the Chinese, catching all the fish, they are left with no fish to sell. And if they are left with no fish to sell, it means their own economy is running dry. They will not be able to feed the family. They'll be stuck in poverty. And yet, 15, 20 years ago, they were doing very well for the family. They were going to Tangier beach, getting all the fish, selling it for a profit, and taking some home. But now you cannot find fish, because all the local dealers have been driven away from the market. The market is a very lucrative market. It's giving the country millions and millions and millions of dollars, but those dollars are not coming into the communities where those fish traditionally are associated with. So you can see that also. Going back again to our health, no health without health. Well, life without good health is no health, because you're going to end up, living in fear. And when you have health problems, whether they are minor or major health problems, you'll be worried, full of anxiety, wouldn't know where to go, who to face. So there was, in the documents in the past, in 1987, there was what was called the Bamako Agreement. There was a meeting in Bamako, Mali, in 1987, and that mapped out the logistic nature and the strategic nature of our health centers, our primary health centers. The idea was, no matter where you live, if you have a health problem, you can go to the local health center and all your healthcare needs would be met at that center. You don't need to be put on a horse cart to be transported when you are pregnant from one health center to a bigger facility. In 1987, we are talking about 1987, we had lots and lots of resources. The Gambia, in terms of per capita access to a health center, is very, very good compared to other nations. But what is missing, though, is injecting more and more resources into our health centers so that when you have a health scare problem, your diagnosis, your treatment can all be found in your local health center. That was the idea in 1987. And guess, between 1987 and now, how much money has been pumped into health in the Gambia? And how much is the government spending per capita on people's health? Very, very poor. In fact, it's got worse now than before. And yet there is more money injected into the economy now than it was before. So you don't have to be, an economist, or you don't have to be, an educationalist to understand what is wrong in the Gambia. There are so many things wrong in the Gambia, but we are not being given opportunity to sit down, come from different quarters to talk about what is missing. Where is the missing link? Who is the missing link? What is the missing link? How can we co-join and bring this missing link together so that we can live a very happy and loving and compassionate community? Now then, you go back to every country where the resources come from, where the revenue comes from, is important. In the Gambia, we have certain places where revenue is coming from. Your seaport, for example. Seaport is a very, very good revenue earner for the central government. But can we sit here today and believe that every revenue generated by our seaport goes into government coffers? No, it doesn't. So much is put in, but so much also equally is missing. How can a container ship, for example, be at the port for 2 weeks and they are not able to unload it? You see where our problems are. The Gambia could have created a new port in Mandinaring, for example. Mandinaring is very accessible by sea. They can say, okay, let's think about 20 years' time. Let's create jobs. A seaport in Mandinaring, housing estate in Mandinaring, jobs for young people in Mandinaring and the combos, another seaport, so that at least 5 to 10 ships are unloaded every day. How much money would that bring into our economy? We are lagging behind on everything. I'll leave it there for now, Ibi.
Yes, yeah. Thank you so much, Sal. I think the ridiculousness of our failing especially our leadership, lack of vision, lack of empathy, people who are awash with corrupt mentality that if they take one step, they take two steps back. All those people who were floundering all kind of money and cars and so-called temporal life during Jammeh's time are back into the doldrum in the Gambia, where the hospitals are not functioning, where the education system are not functioning. Now the only thing that's left to them is to be praise singers so that they can have crumbs from leaderships and all those things. That's what sustain the leadership. One will ask themselves, those who are supporting all these failures, because if you are supporting your leaders who are failed like this, what is our government doing for us? Education is not free. Health is not free. People are hungry. Life is unaffordable in the Gambia. There's no housing, for ordinary people. So the big question is, why are you supporting leadership? Not only this leadership, Sal, to emphasize that any leadership that comes to the Gambia and fails spectacularly, like this leadership is doing, we need to come out and take them out. We see in the UK here, leaders will come less than even their fourth term. People will boot them out because they are not delivering to the expectation of people. Why do we have to celebrate and support failures and cling with leaders who failed, and we expect we have to give them more time for them to continue failing and end up like how Jammeh end up? Billions, $1 billion. That's the one that we have officially. But before coming back to you, I have Sadio Bayan once again. He said the debt portfolio of Gambia imposes a state of chronic high blood condition on the economy. I like that. That's a typical Gunjurian.
Yes, Brother Sadio Bayan. Yes.
Yes. Say too much money, too little productive economic activities. Idle capital in few hands. Idle capital. Very, very interesting here. Sal, you are going to come down. You will respond to that. Boubacar Toure also, Gambians should stop accepting self-destruction through intellectual dishonesty. And my own wife, Mariama Juare, says Gambian voters can do better than these two, dancing and drumming after politicians who don't care about them. Uncle Sal, this is important because the whole essence of this dialogue is civic education. So that we can start, pricking each other, thinking. Let's not put our chest in front. Let's not be emotional. This is not about the blue, the yellow, and all those. This is about the welfare of that country. You were there during the rainy season. The collapse of infrastructure, the amount of disease that comes out because of stagnant water, and then you compare that to the availability of hospital space and the care that people have, we lose empathy. So Maslow's hierarchy, we have to go back to it, and self-esteem. Because our physiologies are damaged. The protein, the cheapest protein that we had was our bongas, our cheap fees. People may be poor, but they can walk into Tangier, into Gunjur, and come out with fish and sell it, and have pocket money. Even us, we used to know that, we just go, the fishermen will come and we will just go and pick it there and sell it and have fish money. But our mothers who were toiling there, they pay their kids school fees and all those things. But no, you suspend all that. And the productive sector of your economy and the health, the foundation of the health of your people. You just excoriate all those things and dig it and give it to small boys. Because the golden leads in Gunjur, those are kids. And the fish meal company is so cheap. It's so cheap. Even few Gunjurians can put their money together and run that. Why do you have to give that to those young boys with basically makeshift company? Because any day they want to live, they will even leave it there. It will crumble. That's not an infrastructure. It's a poorly makeshift place to make money, to deny our people. No wonder we don't have fish. We depend on chickens that are sent from other places, and most of them are making us sick and sick and sick.
Exactly.
I'll go ahead, especially the issue of youth. You talk about the parkway. People are coming with trauma because of failure. They think they failed themselves. They failed their people. And the communities, even their own people, will not welcome them. They categorize them as failures. The pain in the young people's mind make them to be armed robbers. They can rob you. They will take drug to quench their failure, to quench their pain. You know, and if that means they will going to rob you to at least have a decency in their life, they will do that. If they are going to kill you to get a mobile phone from you, they are going to do that. These are foreign in the Gambia. Why can't we just question ourselves why suddenly we have the explosion of our youth? Because before we did it, we have youth unemployment, not to this level, but they don't go and kill people. They don't go and rob people because there are system there. That's empathy comes back again, where everybody will look after everybody, where we can go, we can just melt into each other's compound and eat their sal. You know, where we can go to anybody, anywhere, and we can sleep when we don't have beds and all those things. Where the community will come when your house is flooded, they will all come the following day, go into booths, cut the palm leaves and all those things, and come and help you. That empathy now is absent because our leaderships from our village level to the leadership level at the helm, at the pinnacle, is failed. And this is the reality. Anybody who disagree might come and say you can blame others, and everybody has a stake in these failures and in the success. But at the end of the day, the buck has to stop with the leadership that has everything that we all gather together, and they are managing it. Go ahead, sir. Especially the mental health, the youth issues.
Coming back to
go ahead.
Young people who get deported to the Gambia, and their traumatic experiences. Their, we must emphasize on the point that these people are exposed to kind of very, very harrowing experiences, up to a point where they are not able to sleep. They are not able to function meaning even meet their basic needs. And I think it is the government's responsibility. You see, there is some hypocrisy in this, because before people get deported, IOM, for example, would know how many Gambians are being deported. They would even go to the airport to meet them. So why is our government not accommodating these people, not saying to these people, look, before they get deported from, let's say, Germany, why can the government not sit with the German government and say, look, build us a technical school in Kiang, for example, so that when young people who are deported back to the country, who have not got any skills, they'll have the opportunity to go there, they'll have somewhere to sleep, they will have some education to have, and we will create the government. You see, one of the solutions, you think about solutions. One of the solutions, I think, that would be very, very helpful in young people's situation would be a kind of microfinance that looks after young people's well-being only. They have to segregate young people. Young people are the assets of our country. They are our future assets. And we are in a lucky position that we are one of the most youthful populations in the world, or in our part of the world. So this is why it is extremely important that the government accommodate young people's needs now and in the future. So there'll be no harm in saying, look, when these people get deported, before they even get deported, the government should have a body of government technocrats who will be responsible for the welfare of these people. When they come to the country, create a journey for them where this journey is going to lead. And the end journey is going to be this person to reflect on where they have just been and to build a new life in his own country, to love the country and love to stay. But because there is no opportunity in our country, young people become very hopeless, very helpless, very depressed about being in the country. So in other words, it is the Gambia itself that sends young people abroad, that kicks them out of the country deliberately, because if the Gambia is a compound and the leader is the compound leader, the compound leader is not creating any opportunity for young people in his or her compound for them to remain in the compound and contribute to the development of the compound and the country. So you can see why young people are going, fleeing. They are fleeing in large numbers from the country. And it's a big, big shame for our country, really. And I think when we are looking at solutions, I think we need to look at these governments and the leadership, they must decentralize. We must give power back to local people. Local governments must be in a position to identify the needs of the local people, to identify the priorities of their local area, and then allow local people to make decisions about where money is spent. I think local people have to come to the forefront of local development. So ministries, for example, should be decentralized. We should not expect a Ministry of Health to be in Banjul. What are the health problems of the Gambia? They are all up country. So this is why it would be appropriate for the Ministry of Health, for example, to be located in a place like upcountry. So we should expect the Ministry of Health to be kicked to upcountry so that they can serve the purpose of their health ministry, and all local government revenue must remain locally. So, for example, if West Coast was to generate $10 million annually, we would expect that 10 million to remain in West Coast, and for that 10 million, the way it is spent, what it is spent on, to be decided by local people. And by local people, young people must take a lead in this. They must be put in strategic positions so that their voice is heard. They must be put in strategic positions so that no decision would be made without their presence. And coming back to decentralization, central government and local government revenue resources must all be digitalized. For example, those who go looking for people at the market, asking them to pay the market rates must not be paid physically. They can be paid, and then receipts be wired to women's mobile phones so that they can have access to their receipts, and whoever is coming asking for them to pay revenue, they would say, look, I've paid my revenue already, here it is in my phone. So the digitalization of all revenue, whether it's central government or local government, is important, not only to reduce corruption, but to make sure that money that is generated by local people is spent on the welfare of the local people. I think that is important.
Yeah.
And secondly, we need to embark on.
Sal, before I come back to you on that point, Gunjur Online is making a breaking news here that in Lampedusa, we have about 20 a boat that was being rescued, and young people were rescued. About 20 of them, and all of these are from Gunjur.
Well, you see,
Gunjur, 20 of them. The boat is being rescued, but we can confirm, according to Gunjur Online breaking news, 20 young men rescued on this boat,
very sad,
in the island of Lampedusa. 20, all from Gunjur. 20 young men. 20 young men, all from Gunjur. The rest,
they are all men. They are all boys.
They're all men. We don't know the rest.
But 20 young girls in Gunjur.
Yeah, so that you can continue. Nuha Sise, professor, says, I think it is a vicious cycle, because even when the funds are available to build a training center, exactly, those funds are again looted before they are even received. Salif, you can go ahead with your solutions, and you can respond to some of these things if you want. Go ahead.
And I think what we need in the Gambia is, you see, when you have an economy that's decayed, and when you have an economy that's in a chronic state, and when people are hopeless, people are helpless, to inject some kind of new life into how people feel and where people live, we need them, massive regeneration programs. We need massive regeneration programs that would look at each and every sector and look at what is it that is chronic about that sector, and how can that sector be brought to life? How can that sector be innovated, or how can new things be introduced in that sector so that it can become attractive to young people, it can be attractive to people who use that sector? So I think a massive regeneration program is needed. All the industries, decay and chronic non-advancement skills training centers for, let's say, if we were to build centers for plumbing, for electrician, for welding, for well digging, for all sorts, so that local consumption can be there when people need it, that's not something that's difficult. All that the leadership needs to do is to think cleverly, think smartly, introduce vision innovatively. That's all that they need. Try and put into the community what was not there before. Try and engage with community members and say, look, what are your priorities? What are your needs? Write them down. Give that responsibility to the community itself. When local funds are generated, allow local people to spend them the way they want to spend them according to their priorities. For example, 50 years ago, if the roads in Sukuta, roads in Gunjur, roads in the whole of the West Coast were left to local governments to be responsible for the monies and to be responsible for constructing new ones and maintaining the old ones, I'm sure it would inject a new lease of life to these roads. While I was in there during the rainy season, there are families who cannot even walk out of their rooms to go and buy basic needs because all the roads around their residences are waterlogged. What kind of Gambia is that? 50 years. I mean, why and how should we be in a situation like this? If you look at statistics, I mean, statistically, we are only 2 million. And sometimes you look at a population. What things are out there that we can make accessible to this population? We can make accessible to this population free healthcare according to the Bamako Agreement. We can make access to free education to a population of 2 million. We can pay teachers, police officers, army people, civil servants enough money. We can even introduce child benefits in the Gambia if we were a smarter nation. There's no harm in dreaming big. We started GPTC. It was very successful. The Bush company. It was very successful until again corruption sets in and made it redundant. But there's no harm in dreaming big. There's no harm in saying in 10 years' time we would like a train line between Joshua and Basse so that people can move. You can go from Joshua to Basse. For in an hour's time you are in Basse. There's no harm in dreaming big, but we have to have the right people, the right mechanisms, the right policies, the right strategies to be able to deliver. Look, take for example UDP's 5-point agenda. At least we know there's an agenda, and we know this is the contract that the party is signing with the general population. Whether they will buy it or not is left to them. But at the end of the day, when you vote UDP, you know for a fact that you are voting for this 5-point agenda to be put in place by leaders you trust. And then again, another party's manifesto. People have to think smartly. We cannot live like this. I mean, it's a big shame. When you go to the Gambia from abroad, you cannot enjoy yourself. Why? Because you cannot be, enjoying yourself and seeing a level of poverty that's not acceptable. Women have kids on their backs going around from compound to compound, asking for rice, asking for, money to buy food, asking for, basic clothing. Children don't have any clothes. And if you look at education schools, you see ministers driving a 4 million car. And if you went to schools, they don't even have enough toilets for boys and girls. Girls' care is lacking. Feminine care. All the schools, they don't have girls' care. And we have an economy that can afford all of those things, but our lives are not being prioritized. Our needs are not being prioritized. As a result, year after year, there's a big disconnect between people who should be putting these things in place and are not putting it in place. And the divide between leaders and followers is getting more and more polarized up to a point that there's a big mistrust. There's a big mistrust.
There is, Sal. We were going to come to that polarization in terms of creating a division within our own self. That's going to defeat our purpose of empathy and love and belonging, and even our safety and the safety of that country. But as you said, we have to have ideas. We have to have visions. We have to have at least a sellable commodity that you're going to sell to people. And as you said, we have to dare. We have to have the audacity to dream, and thanks to our young entrepreneur and very dynamic. Alasan Alex Dabo says, good job, Ibrahim. Very interesting topic. Might be probably he with his dynamism, he can be the leaders of because he dares. He has the audacity to think. He has the audacity to try different things. Yeah. But if you have a leadership that don't even have a vision, that don't have even a manifesto, whether that manifesto is crap or not, that's why those who come with their manifestos and tell us this is where we are going, we need to celebrate them. Because if you don't have that guiding, a document that at least you can sell to your people to see this is where we want to go. They may disagree or agree, but that's an initial point. Sal, but is in terms of Gambia, what we had before, as you said, is our love for each other, our intermarriage. Gambians are so connected in terms of marrying across board. From colors, from religion, from tribes, all over the place. Than anywhere I can think of in this world, even though I'm not as traveled as some other people. But, with my little experience, I know that place has been a haven in terms of people intermarrying, people going into Egypt, because I have friends across board. You will have to go, you will going to get it so wrong. If I am Jane, you think because of Jane, he's a Mandinka or he is this. When all over around me, everybody around me is a tribe here, it's a tribe, it's a rainbow, it's a mixture of all of us together. Until when our leaders want to use our divisions for their party politics. And unfortunately, we just sleepwalk into their trap and listen to their crabs. When we have a sister who is a Jola married to somebody like me who is a Mandinka, when we have somebody from Sierra Leone who is married to somebody in Wolofs, we have Akus and all those all mixed together. And still we reduce ourselves to the lowest of the law. For a people who has no vision, people who retrogressively, taking us 50 years back, because Gambia is 50, Sal, to buttress this point, when I was young, there is a third road in Gunjur, fully third road across, from almost when you finish Sanyang, somewhere before you enter into Gunjur, there is a highly kept third road that goes all the way until when you finish Gunjur and you are heading to Kartong. The same also on the other side when you go into C4. We have, drainage system. We call them pipes. They are as big as when we were young. We crawl there. And every raining season, before the raining season is approaching, there are people who will take care of this, clear and take all the blocks out. In that place. We have investments in Gunjur and all those things. We have nearly 2 to 3 cinemas. We have discos and Gunjur was a booming business center. This place is dying. Our Gunjur is dying. There's no road. There's no tar road there. We used to have our local prisons there. We used to have a vibrant health system. Imagine. I have our birth certificate that were rescued when my dad died. My sisters post them to me. Sal, every day my mom attend and all the vaccinations and injections, see those. We had the records on the birth certificates. And the papers are as solid as they are, just like we had. They are even better than the ones that we had about even 10 years ago. That was I can follow my mom's medical record through those documents for all her kids before she died. That's progress. Where did that all go? Vanished into thin air. So that's why Gambia is retrogressing. Nobody can deny that. That country, in terms of infrastructures making progress, is not making progress, it's retrogressing. This is the ideas that we want people to understand and see our interest in that country. But this tribalism, so I'll talk about it because I don't want to go forward other than what
I mean, as you rightly said, in the Gambia is a very small nation, population-wise, and wherever you go, people intermarry extensively. My mother is a Fula, my dad is a Mandinka. I've got daughters who are married to Wolof, Fula, Mandinka, etc. And it's the same picture wherever you go. So this idea of tribalism is not going to work in the Gambia. It's not going to work in the Gambia because it's people are shooting themselves in the foot if they want to use it as a gun, because it won't work. It won't work for another reason, that when people are intermarried, if you harm one person, you've harmed the rest of that community. That's how it works in the Gambia. So bringing tribalism into the political equation, it's a very, very ridiculous kind of plan or effort, really, because what they are missing is when people know for a fact they are not successful in delivering, because being in government, it's all about delivering your policies, your strategies, your aims, your objectives. If you are not delivering according to the wishes of the population, then it means you are a failure. And when people fail, they try and find all sorts of excuses. And using the tribalism card, it's not going to work at all. It isn't. It's not going to work, because all we need to do when there is a problem, we need to go back, do some reflection, do some dialogue, try and iron out what are the solutions. And the solutions for bringing life back into the Gambia are many, but it's doable. It has to be in the right hands, with the right people, with the right kind of motivation, and with the right kind of equipment, with the right kind of technological know-how. Everything has to be put in place, and everything can be put in place. This is where the problem is. Everything can be put in place for a successful Gambia, but it's not being put in place because of self-aggrandizement, because of people think about themselves first before the country. They see the country before their private aims and objectives. So this is why again we must come back to these two elements we've been talking about all night, and that is the need to have dialogue. We need to have civic education where people know their rights and people know what is missing in their communities. If you went to Sukuta, for example, and engage with young people and the elders, and see, everyone will be saying everything is going backwards here. And if you ask a specific question, what is it that is lacking in this community? Some people will say, we are not as united as we were before. So that unity, you see, a local community, when you are under pressure, you need to unite to fight the local leadership and the national leadership on all the fronts, so that you can achieve your goals. But if you are not united, and again, politicians use this as a game to disunite people so that they can have the community divided. And once the community is divided, we know there'll be less criticism coming from the community. So we must not allow politicians to use the division card to infiltrate our political aims and objectives.
Thank you so much, Sal. I'm going to relieve you. Definitely, we promise to do only 1 hour, but the dialogue and the the exchange of ideas, purely ideas based on fact, no emotion, have taken over. That's the beauty of ideas. Anytime ideas prevail, the peoples will have the self-actualization, that we are, and people will be satisfied with themselves, because that's the power of ideas. And whenever, people are not insulting, but they are discussing issues, it makes everybody happy, and it makes us better people, because we are going to reflect on what the issues that we put on table here. Finally, Sal, you can route it up there. Especially on the election year is about nearly about 2 months to go or less. And your advice to young people and to women, who are suffering. They've been suffering historically, but now they're even suffering more, because of through our maternity health cares and many other things, our babies, lack of job, and some of the gardens, the lands, the fishing areas that they used to of their incomes are not there now, and they can be taken advantage, and the young people now are either mentally, they have mental health issues, or they are going into back ways, and the young women are left there, and the prostitution will be boom, with kind of flourishing in that place. That comes with the health impact of it, and you mentioned the sanitary products, the period poverty that left a lot of girls, not going to school. And we have to discuss these things. It's a lot, but election is coming, Sal. Give your advice finally, might be 5 minutes or less, to the people, so that we can think and know we have to change leaders, so that leaders can respect us. If leaders comes and didn't live to expectation, let's just change them. Let's not think about who is not going, who is coming, and all those things. Let's just change them, so that the incoming one, the message will be emphatically in front of them, that if you don't deliver, you're going to be taken out. And if you get corruptions, you're going to pay the price for squandering our public resources. But if we leave leaders there to be there for 30 years, 20 years, and celebrating and rewarding failures, at the end of the day, we are all going to retrograde, and we are all going to fall into an abyss that is going to affect us. Even we are here, because the burden has to come back to us at the end of the day. But we have nearly 99% of who we are back in that country. We cannot sleep in Europe or in America or anywhere in the world when 99% of who you are almost living in a jungle. And this is man-made jungle. Made by our leaders. Salif, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Yes, it's an election year this year, and I think the Gambia obviously is in a political crossroad. Here we have a leader and government that is very, very dysfunctional, up to a point where the fabric of our society is disintegrating almost on a daily basis. People are going hungry. People have got no money to buy food. Employment rates are getting lower and lower. Young people are sadly, we have learned this evening, 20 young men in Italy, what a waste of life, in terms of, moving young people from our economy, and then in an area where it's going to take maybe 10 years before they are settled in Italy or wherever, and before they become more productive. So it's a big waste of life. So government, I remember when the Mauritanian incident happened, government officials were running up and down, praising people who, intercepted, etc., etc. But then it died down, and we knew for a fact that, the emotions were going to go away. What we need is, practical and tangible assets in the country that would reduce the motivation for young people to leave the country. We need to engage with young people, look at their mental well-being, look at their social welfare, look at how the nation can incorporate their needs into everything that we do. For example, there is no harm in setting up a microfinance specifically for young people only, and it would look after their technical development, their housing development, and their future plans. Every young person will have a portfolio for their lives, what it is now and where they would like it to be, so that they can map out their journey and take us through step by step where they want to be in 10 years' time. I think that kind of engagement with young people is important. And going back to Brother Sadio Bayan's term, idle capital, I think that's very, very interesting. And those who are economists must search our economy extensively to identify where the loopholes are that promote this kind of idle capital, and where that idle capital needs to go back to or needs to be spent on. I think that's important. We also need regulatory bodies, so that a regulatory body, for example, health regulatory body, that would listen to all complaints. If a woman was to attend a healthcare facility, a pregnant woman, and they lost their lives, that person will have the opportunity to come to this health regulatory body. It will have nurses, it will have doctors, and it will have lawyers who would assess this individual's case. And if it is viable for people to be prosecuted, they can be prosecuted. I mean, we cannot leave the healthcare system to be a kind of lottery. You go in and you're not sure whether you're going to come out. No, we cannot have a healthcare system like that. How can you be performing an operation on an individual and knowing for a fact that if the lights went out, there is no power supply for electricity? You can have a generator standby so that you can have your powers. And how can you operate on someone in theater knowing for a fact that you have no gas supplies as a backup? That's irresponsible. That's negligence. So we need regulatory bodies that will look after the welfare of the women who are perishing every day. We know why women are accessing healthcare more than men. Women are exposed to a wide range of health deficits, and that's to do with their physiological makeup, and that's to do with their cultural and social setup. Women are running every day up and down. They are the most disempowered members of our society in the Gambia. Women have very little say. I dream a day when we will have a woman president who will lead the country, and a woman in every sector standing side by side with a man to address the needs of our country. You see, all these characteristics I've mentioned, according to Maslow and according to psychology, etc., having empathy, esteem, safe. If you look at the way women operate in our compounds and in our society, they are the safety keepers. Whether it comes to, everyday fish money, it's with women. Boys and girls school lunch and the school dinner is with women. Getting up first thing in the morning, trying to sort something out for the children and the family, the responsibility is with women. Going out first thing in the morning, sometimes before 4 o'clock, to search for food so that they can put some food on the table that day, is with women. So why are we continually not necessarily abusing women, but we are not supporting them, we are not helping them, and yet strategically they are in the middle of everything that the country does. So we need to see organizations that give a lot of power and opportunities to women in terms of their personal development, business development, educational development, because we know for a fact in every compound where the woman is taking care of all these responsibilities, the family will not fail. But in every compound where the man is the person taking responsibilities, men can be very dictatorial in terms of how they run the household. And if they have more than one wife, then we are looking at many, many social problems. So, but we know for a fact, women, they bear the brunt of the failures of our economy. So as a result, they have to be brought to the forefront of solutions in every solution we can find.
Yes, thank you so much. And no society, no community can develop if more than half of your populations are bereft with skills, with knowledge, and they are the foundation. And even though they are the foundation of your well-being, because they are the mothers. That's some of everything. They are mothers. They have the patient. They have the empathy that we are talking about. They will die for their kids and their family and their husbands and everything. But in fact, even with all those, we just disenfranchise them. We use them when we need them. That is at the political rallies for so-called. Anytime they comes, they be on our feet. But that country, the Gambia, it seems God is just telling us a message that we are ignoring. That man has been in the helm of things for so long and nothing seems to be working for us. God now deliberately giving every family women. Every family. We have more girls now in average families in the Gambian communities than men. Coincidence? I'm not so. Why can't you think about this and think maybe there is a lesson. There is a lesson that God is telling us how we are going with this trajectory, with these girls dominating our families. These people are going to be the majority, more majority. They are already majority, but the majority is going to be increased, and more men are dying and women are living. So one thing that we need to do if we are strategists is to think, how can we empower these women. They are going to be the people who our country are going to be left with, because they are getting more and more. They are getting many. The men are dying, and unfortunately, when these men running from our country, it is the women that stays. Once again, thank you, Sal. You've been you dignified this program, what we expect, and we are so proud of you. Because not just coming here to divorce with your emotion, but to give us ideas intellectually, with facts, with life experiences. And we are proud of you, Secretarians. Really, I think these last 2 weeks, you outwit Gunjurians. I hope we have another Gunjurian that will come and do a better job, more than the Balin Champs and the Secretarian, the Sal. But once again, we are very, very, very proud, and hopefully our listeners have been given food for thought, that we all go to sleep today thinking about some of the points, unbiasedly, but for the interest of our country, for the interest of our sons and daughters, for the interest of about 99% of who we are. If we are not in the Gambia, this is our responsibility, all of us. Salih will go to Gambia. He will do voluntary lecturing. The mental health institution is there. He will run. He will run from institution to institution. That's how our holidays should be. It will have to be meaningful, because there's nothing to celebrate in the Gambia. If Gambia is not our birthplace, we will not go there for holidays, because there's nothing there to enjoy other than the connection we have to that soil, that yellow soil, other than the umbilical cord that is buried in that place, and we cannot just turn our back from the Gambia. Once again, thank you to all our listeners. Thank you to my uncle Abubakar for being a technical assistant for us and Lamin Jammeh's camp. Now there. Thank you all, Gunjur Online, and thank you, Sal, and thank you to all our listeners once again.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Thank you, Abubakar.
Thank you, Sal. We have Imam Sido Ali to continue with the Black Companion of Prophet Muhammad, and tomorrow we will have that on Thursday from 7 o'clock. Once again, thank you to Nuha. I have to read Nuha's, because Nuha is my professor and my teacher. I can see a lot of passion in your deliberation, Jen. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Sal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.